It looks like some of the wealthy here in this country don't believe that lives should take priority over the state of the economy. Now, as we know, the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a number of quarantines throughout the nation. A lot of blue states, including California and New York, have told their citizens, hey, you know what? You need to stay home and we need to slow the spread of this virus in order to save lives. But wealthy people are like, I don't know. I don't know. This is really hurting our stock portfolios, and we need people to get back to work, even if it risks their lives. So the Wall Street Journal wrote this op-ed. Their editorial board wrote this op-ed that made my head explode. And the headline is, Rethinking the Coronavirus Shutdown, No Society Can Safeguard Public Health for Long at the Cost of Its Economic Health. And so I was like, okay, the headline is obviously attention grabbing, but is the body of the piece as bad as I think it might be? And so it's behind a paywall, but I'm going to give you a few interesting excerpts. They write, this won't be popular to read in some quarters. Gee, I wonder which quarters that'll be. But federal and state officials need to start adjusting their antivirus strategy now to avoid an economic recession that will dwarf the harm from 2008 to 2009. Even cash-rich businesses operate on a thin margin and can bleed through reserves in a month. First, they will lay off employees, and then out of necessity, they will shut down. Another month like this week, and the layoffs will be measured in millions of people. So the way that they frame it is, no, but we're just worried about people's jobs. We're just worried about people's jobs, that's what we're really concerned about. Maybe there's some degree of truth to that. But in reality, what they're concerned about is what we're seeing in the stock markets right now. The Dow dropped another 600 points before we went live today. And so they're panicking. And people staying home means that the economy is just completely halted. And so, look, this is literally what we have to do in order to stop the spread of this virus. And the unfortunate thing is, we have blue states that are telling people to stay home. And then we have red states that refuse to do anything, including Ron DeSantis in Florida, who refuses to shut down the beaches. The beaches need to be shut down immediately. We have young people going over there, spreading the virus like crazy.
First of all, there's just a little bit of propaganda that's a side issue that's driving me crazy. Yeah, they're showing young people doing this stupid stuff on the beaches, but now conservatives have hung on to that as if it's progressive young people who are stupid that are causing the virus to spread. What are you guys talking about? We saw the video of the jam-packed Nashville bar and people writing Nashville undefeated. And you've got Republican after Republican saying, don't worry about it. Okay, we're too strong for this virus. They sound like the most ignorant people all across the world that say, oh, yeah, disease won't affect me. So now the heart of this issue. Look, it's not that the economic woes here are small or that you should not be concerned about them. You should be concerned. The stock market here dropped 30% quicker than it did during the Great Depression. So even worrying about the economy by itself, let alone its effect on the workers, is a legitimate concern, a very legitimate concern. Now, having said that, to then prioritize it over people's lives not only is not the right thing to do and immoral, but most importantly, it isn't going to work. It's going to make the situation worse.
Yes.
And the economic downturn even worse than it would be normally. So let me just quickly explain why. If you stay quarantined long enough, you potentially could get rid of enough of the virus that when everybody goes back to work, things are relatively okay. There's still some cases, but it peters out. Okay, that's what's roughly called flattening the curve, right? But if you do it in waves, before it's peaked, you send people back into large gatherings, back into work. They then have new people contract the disease from those folks, and you start a whole nother cycle, and then another cycle, and then you got to quarantine people again and again, and we never get rid of the damn thing, and then the economy craters in a way that makes this look like a picnic.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's so counterproductive in so many different ways because more people are going to lose their lives if we don't slow the spread of this virus. And if we're not all on board and if we don't all encourage people to stay home at the same time, then this is needlessly going to drag on. And, it's the argument I've been making ever since people have been told to stay home, right? Like, we don't live on an island here in California. They don't live on an island in New York. We're all one country. And so as long as we're all on different, schedules with this is just going to last longer. And the economy is going to suffer more while people are losing their lives. And then, of course, who doesn't want to hear from Lloyd Blankfein? He tweeted something pretty gross about this as well. He said, extreme measures to flatten the virus curve is sensible for a time to stretch out the strain on health infrastructure. But crushing the economy, jobs, and morale is also a health issue and beyond. Within a very few weeks, let those with lower risk to the disease return to work. So he wants more people to go back to work. Gee, I wonder why. And by the way, there's a lot that we don't really know about this virus, right? When we first learned about it, there was a lot of news that it mostly impacts older Americans, right? But now we're hearing about more and more young people who contracted the virus. They're actually generally healthy. They don't have any type of respiratory issues or any underlying health concerns. They get the virus and, it impacts them pretty aggressively. And I only say that because people might think, oh, young people can go back to work. I mean, they're low risk. But you don't really know. I think it impacts people differently, right? Mm-hmm. So again, he's encouraging risking people's lives just to save the economy. And you're right, Cenk, we should be concerned about the economy. But what's the priority here, right? Is it human lives or is it the stock market? And I would argue that human lives are a little more important.
Well, no, look, as I said earlier, it's not an either or. The entire question, the framing is incorrect. Because if you send people back to work too early, you're not going to help the economy anyway. All it's going to do is create a vicious cycle. So, okay, let's take big picture first and then smaller picture. Big picture is the coasts get hit first because that's where a lot of the international travelers come. That's where the virus comes in. So that's already happened. So that's why New York and California and the state of Washington are hit the hardest. Then the virus travels to inside the country gradually. And then if the blue states on the coast are maintaining their quarantines, but the red states in the middle are not, they will then export that back out to the coast and creating an endless cycle of disease that totally drags down the economy with it because we're constantly going back into quarantines, right? So now to the small picture of sending people to work that are so-called healthy, no. That also misunderstands the disease. Younger people have a better chance of surviving the disease, a substantially better chance of surviving the disease. That doesn't mean that they have a lower chance of carrying the disease.
Right.
So you send them back in. It's not like they don't have it. So they can spread it to everyone at work. And then they go back home and then they spread it to everyone, including older Americans, etc. And there we go again, another vicious cycle. Just because they're in a panic about their wealth, that they're not going to help their wealth anyway by doing this panic strategy. And you're right that even in their version where they think they will help their money, man, that is a hell of a priority there. My wealth is down 30%. If you got to get like Lloyd Blankfein, what difference does it make? Right. You're never, ever, ever going to run out of money. But I'm going to send people back to work. And lastly on that, guys, think about what that means. Like, if they say to us, hey, you can send people back into the office, we're not going to anyway until we think it's safe. That's why we're doing this show from home. And all of our workers are now dispersed to their own homes. And we got editors and editing at home. And we got a whole setup. And we did this as quickly as humanly possible. But bad guy companies are going to be like, yeah, what do I care? Go make the cars, right? Mm-hmm. Or you're going to lose your job. Go risk your life or you're going to lose your job.